Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Hyper 15 webcast. My name's Daryl Cross with Hyper Teams, and today we have an exciting topic to talk about. Artificial intelligence, uh-oh, or okay. And really, that really depends on how we view it. Is it a positive? Is it a negative? Is it something that we can use to help our clients, or if it's something that's just here to take our jobs and we have to fight it every step of the way? Well, there's a lot of different perspectives we can take. We have a special guest here today that is going to be talking about this, and that's why I've extended this webinar to 30 minutes instead of the usual 15, because there's so much to cover in terms of not only what is artificial intelligence, but what does it mean for us and our clients? Because ultimately, they're the ones driving the decisions to use new technologies, new techniques, and new approaches to get them results better, faster, and cheaper. So let's take a look at what our agenda is for today. First of all, how do we leverage this promise of AI and still remain relevant ourselves? But of course, it's going to be important for us to define what is AI and how is it something that we can be smarter and faster and better with and not be so overly concerned with why the world is changing. We'll talk about three big things: what's AI, why is it legal, what are firms doing with AI, and how do we stay in control and still remain relevant. So we'll have some takeaways throughout and at the end, but let's talk about the initial challenge. The initial challenge is the fact that we know for a while now that buyers are in charge, and they're demanding new things from us all the time. Different pricing alternatives, different ways of doing research. They're expecting the same results in a shorter amount of time and a lower cost. So we're starting to see this disaggregation of legal work because of these challenges. Some firms can do it, some can't, or are not willing to, and that's actually leading some of our clients to do alternative service providers. Sometimes those alternative service providers may be other companies, they may be machines in the future, or even a little bit now, but they also might be themselves, their own legal department. So it really is a question of who will be this general contractor going into the future. The client itself? Is it another firm? These alternative legal service providers, or will it be you? And that's one of the things that we'll be talking about as we go forward. Our guest today is Dr. Mark Green. He, of course, is the founder of Market Intelligence, LLC, but he is a longtime friend and also somebody that really knows his stuff when it comes to AI, but also strategy, branding, intelligence, and all the things that go along with it. He's a LMA Hall of Fame member, and I say welcome to you, Mark.
Thanks, Daryl. Great to be here.
So as we go forward here, I encourage you to, after this broadcast, to visit the link on the bottom of Mark's page, because he really has done a great job in compiling all the different pieces of information that is out there regarding artificial intelligence and its application to our industry, our firms, and even individuals. And there might be a lot of people, Mark, that actually say, hey, once again, another fad in law firms, but you have a different take on this.
Well, I've certainly seen my share of those fads come and go, some of which have actually had some traction, like putting actual computers on lawyers' desks, some of which have kind of faded away. We were all terrified that the big accounting firms were going to take over the legal industry about 20 years ago. But this one isn't just the new kid on the block, and it's not just about the legal industry, but our economy, our environment in general is about to be transformed by AI. I particularly like this example from the Stanford Law Review. There was an article, some speculation about artificial intelligence and legal reasoning, in which they said, computer science is making progress with natural language communication. Its long-range relevance to legal problem solving is clear. So I would appreciate it if our listeners would type in a guess as to when this Law Review article appeared. And once we've gotten a couple of those, I'll do the great reveal. So,
okay, everybody. So this
Somebody
is your.
Please type in a year.
This is your chance. Go ahead and use the chat feature down at the bottom of your console. What year was this statement made? I see some people typing now.
I've used this example several times in speeches around the country, and the results have been interesting. The answer is not 2016, which I've heard a few times.
Well, we have answers all over the place, Mark, so let's go ahead. What is the big reveal here?
Okay. 1970. So it's that almost 50 years ago. The Stanford Law Review was already saying, here it comes. Well, it was a little bit late taking off, but it's certainly here now. There are three things that have held it back that we now have. The availability of what now that's Trinity call big data, huge amounts of data, more than ever before. The amount of data in the world is doubling, more than doubling every year now. The ability to process it with much more sophisticated algorithms than we had in our basic statistics way back then, and processing power. Some of you are probably familiar with Moore's Law, the doubling of processing power every year that goes back so many years now, and that exponential curve is still taking off. So they were talking about it in 1970. Today it's real, and we'll talk about that for the rest of our time today. So does this stuff matter? You don't have to look very far to find all sorts of experts saying the world is about to be transformed, that this is going to be as transformational as the Industrial Revolution, as the Internet, as electricity. There's been a debate going on this week between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg as to whether or not this is an existential threat to humanity. I come very much down on the no, it's not side. But really, really smart people, from Stephen Hawking to the leaders of a lot of countries now that are getting behind this, are saying this stuff matters, and it certainly matters to the legal industry.
And it's going to change pretty much every industry, and we're not insulated from that. So I guess the big question is, how is your firm and its professionals reacting to AI? And if it's anything like some of the other things they've reacted to when it comes to technology in the past, like, oh, I don't know, switching from WordPerfect to Word, or the horror of putting attachments on email, what if someone steals them? You know, their first reaction is relatively predictable. They are flustered, they are scared, they feel like they're all alone, and what happened to my practice of law? The thing is that really the takeaway is we need to let artificial intelligence do its job. It's very good at it, and it's a benefit for us and our clients. And then afterwards, though, we must proactively adapt to it and make it a valuable member of our team, and thinking about artificial intelligence as a member of our team. And Mark, you think that's a must?
I like your use of the word must there. I was about to hit that, Daryl. Yes, you're 2 years away from retirement, and no, you don't have to do this. You'll be able to sail off into your future very comfortably without reacting to AI. Thank you very much. But for the rest of us, even if we don't want to get out there in front and help lead this charge, our clients are going to demand it. So to stay in existence over the long haul, just as you had to give every lawyer a computer, you're going to have to embrace AI, because if you don't, your competitors, your clients, and this whole new cast of characters called alternative legal service providers will, and your lifespan will be very much shortened thereby.
So let's talk about the three big things for today. Number one, what is AI and why is it in legal? And one of the things that you'll see is it's already in all aspects of our world, legal also, and clients expect it in your world and theirs. The second big thing would be, what are firms doing with AI? Because it's already in legal and it's expanding rapidly, and we'll show specific examples of how firms and alternative service providers are using this. And then finally, how do we stay in control? And I mentioned teams before when it came to artificial intelligence being part of our team, a tool, a resource, or even a member. The common thread with teams, no matter if it's people or anything else, they require competency, accountability, and trust. Handing things off, sharing information, making the right call faster, better, cheaper, a theme that we'll hear over and over again. So let's talk about AI and why is it in legal? And a lot of times we think about AI as maybe this thing in the distance or something of science fiction, but AI is in our everyday life. I just used my Alexa thing the other day, a great example, but what are some other things that we're seeing nowadays, Mark?
Well, I don't spend an hour, I don't think, that I don't get touched somehow by AI. Whether I get into my Prius and turn it on and it decides how much battery or gas to use, I use Waze to get to my destination. I ask my iPhone to play some music for me. It's everywhere in our lives, and it's moving into our business in ways that we don't even see it. And these are just the very visible manifestations that hit you in the face with these brands. It's insidiously growing. It's just beyond belief how much it's going faster and faster and faster all the time in every aspect of our lives. So I'm always asked, well, what's your definition of AI? And I'd like to not go there, because every smart person just about has published at some point or another what they think AI is. And I can't recall, and believe me, I read a tremendous amount about this, any two people giving the same definition, some are similar, but the same definition of AI. If you get hung up on this, you won't get anywhere, because there's ways to knock holes in every possible definition of AI. It's all these things, and it's more. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about what it really is and how that matters. These words that are appearing on the left side of your screen, most of you have probably run into at some point or another, and they're all manifestations of artificial intelligence. Is machine learning artificial intelligence per se? No, it's part of artificial intelligence. It's one of the tools that artificial intelligence uses, and the same is true for all of these. If you hear any of these, you're probably talking about AI, but none of these is AI per se. So we need a definition. What's AI? Well, my favorite thing to say generally is, if you got a computer doing something that we used to think only the human brain can do, that's AI. We can certainly knock holes in that too, because there are mechanical things like regulating our blood pressure is something that only our brain can do. Well, I don't consider that artificial intelligence. But AI is computers doing stuff that used to be only our brain can do. Use that, but don't get hung up in the general definition. This is like this old Supreme Court decision about pornography. I don't have a precise definition, but I know it when I see it. Go with that, and you'll be fine.
Definitely the quote of the day, Dr. Green. Absolutely. And so our big takeaway here is, the artificial intelligence is just the next iteration or generation or request from clients to do things better, to deliver higher value, not simply just raise rates, and get better results. Sometimes I call the new big screen TV issue. I want a bigger TV with more bells and whistles, and I want to pay less for it. And we've been seeing this for a long time, and artificial intelligence is something that not only fulfills this, but is doing it at an exceptionally growing rate. And it's really not up to us if we want to participate, because the clients want it. Some firms are doing it. It's going to be part of our lives, and it really already is. So let's talk about what firms are doing with that. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we keep saying it over and over again. It's here. And in fact, one of the big areas we can talk about is how AI has already affected the business of law.
Yeah, there are things that we do because we are businesses. And yes, there are still troglodyte lawyers out there who get all upset when you mention law firms as a business. No, we're not. We're a profession. No, I'm sorry, you're a business. Deal with it. And you have an HR function, an IT function, a finance function, a marketing function, and you couldn't exist without those if you're a firm of any size. And those are already embracing AI. For instance, if you're on a computer right now, your IT department is using AI to fend off the cyber threats that hit your firm this morning. The average law firm gets hundreds of cyber attacks every day. And thanks to AI staying half a step ahead, most of those aren't debilitating. Sad footnote to DLA a couple weeks ago. Same with your finance department. It's getting into HR to help with evaluations, to help with hiring. All those lateral partners that brought in with that promised book of business that never really materialized. Believe it or not, people are using AI now to attack some of these things. In marketing, how much do we price our services? It wasn't more than a couple years ago that most firms I was working with couldn't quite figure out what profitability meant, and therefore it was very difficult to be pricing services. But now we're using data about what the competition is charging, data about the price sensitivity of our clients, data from our own accounting systems, bringing those together, and you'll hear as a recurring theme, AI bringing data together from different places to do an analysis and help us decide, well, we should do a collar here, we should do a fixed fee, we should do some shared risk, a success fee, whatever, on pricing. CRM used to just be a hyped up Rolodex. Now, the most sophisticated CRM systems are digging deep into the Thomson Reuters data about clients and companies and what their stock performance has been, and have they grown into different countries in the last couple years, and using that to help trigger which client alerts they're going to send to which clients when. And I can go on and on into each of these. By the way, as Daryl said, my blog, marketintelligencellc.com, every day I post 10 or 15 articles about legal artificial intelligence. And that means that I've looked at literally about 300 titles, skimmed 30 or 40 articles, and posted somewhere between 8 and 12 usually on a given day about artificial intelligence in our industry. There is that much out there. It's really amazing.
The interesting thing about that concept is the fact that you're doing this great process of filtering that down for people, and people are probably still thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to review 10 to 15 articles at a time and stay up to date? Yeah. But what a great argument of why artificial intelligence is becoming so important when it comes to reviewing.
The speed is incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. Up on the right on this slide, you see legal services on AI. Faster, expert, creative, and we'll talk about that, intuitive, and accessible. All those are true, and I'll try to hit on all of those at least a little bit in the time we have remaining today. But one of the things to be very much aware of, AI is empowering competitors for your work, every piece of your work. Other law firms, these things called alternative legal service providers that Daryl mentioned, in-house legal departments taking things more in on their own, and the disaggregation of legal work. So before, you would say, we'll handle that litigation, thank you very much, here's a bill at one point for services rendered. Now the client is saying, I'll handle the strategy in-house. I'll give that to one of my managers in my legal department. I'll give the e-discovery to this alternative legal service provider because they've now been doing e-discovery, which is an AI function, for 10 years. I'll let this firm do the trial strategy because they've got offices where this dispute's liable to go to trial, and I'd like your firm to do whichever other piece, the IP portfolio review that's going to be necessary to defend this case or whatever. The disaggregation of work and spreading it out is in part being enabled by AI, and you've got to deal with that these days. The good news, though, in the bottom right, not so much to your bottom line, but I am really, really concerned about access to justice, have been for a long time. And AI is enabling people who could never afford legal representation before to finally fight back against the man. There's a couple of services out there now online that will do contract review, that will handle a dispute with your landlord, that will help you fight a parking ticket, and tens of thousands of matters have been handled now for people that otherwise wouldn't have any access to justice because of these AI-driven services. And again, more on my blog going in depth into what they do and how they do it for those who can't afford justice. And it doesn't particularly belong here, but I got to mention this quote. Watson, that's the IBM big artificial intelligence engine, could pass a multi-state bar exam without a second thought, says the general counsel of IBM. That may say more about the bar exam than it does about AI, but it is certainly the case that if it can beat Jeopardy and play Go, it can pass a bar exam as well. There was a lot on that slide. Go ahead, Daryl. So that was mainly the business of law. The practice of law, I've divided into 5 different arms here. E-discovery is where artificial intelligence first met law firms. Instead of those huge rooms full of people reviewing paper documents, e-discovery, almost for everybody now, is an AI, either outsourced or the tools brought inside process. And there are many providers of that. I've got 3 specifically named here, but there are many, many, many. And that goes for all of these different branches. On my blog this morning, I mentioned 2 new service providers. One is the easiest way for real estate entrepreneurs to get fundraising legal paperwork done, and the other is a contract review service that just launched. So I'm trying to keep track of all these new players, but again, every day more come into this field. There's so much to be done, and it's very competitive at this point. Contract analysis is something that's really taken off. Better, faster, cheaper is a great way to think about this. My favorite example is a couple or 3 years old now. Big firm in Europe was confronted with some change in EU regulations around employment agreements. They sat back and thought, oh my God, we've got hundreds of thousands of employee agreements and probably no two are exactly the same. We can't review all those. It would cost too much, and by the time we got it done, the regulations would probably have changed. So they brought in an AI provider who said, sure, we'll look at all your contracts, send them to us in some kind of electronic form. Some were Word documents, some were PDFs, whatever. Over a weekend, they reviewed those hundreds of thousands of contracts, gave the client a report early the next week that said, here are the few hundred that you may have some issues with. They then set some low-level in-house counsel to look at those, figured them all out, problem solved, better, more accurately than if it had just been reviewed by people, but the final review process in that case was people. Faster, oh my gosh, in a few days instead of a few months, and at a fraction the cost it would have taken to do that manually. So contract analytics these days and contract drafting is a great example. Prediction, also very closely related to risk management. A lot of players in here. This is just a few. Will this patent application be accepted? Where should we try to get this particular case tried? Which appeals are going to be most effective to this judge? It goes on and on in terms of various aspects of law where prediction can be very powerful. Legal research on the bottom left. There have been a lot of articles written about first-year lawyers not being as good anymore as a good AI at legal research. And I think there's a lot of credibility to that. Many providers in this area, some of these names, of course, are familiar to you, growing very fast and moving up the food chain. The upper left corner is the one that makes everybody most uncomfortable. And we're not there yet, but if you talk to some of the folks at Neotologic, some of whom are good friends of mine, they'll tell you that we're making judgment calls now. We're at least recommending judgment calls, expertise. It's not just a mechanical processing of data, but we're making probabilistic judgments as to what's most likely to be how successful in which situation. That's the holy grail. Not completely there yet, but I don't discount the possibilities in the next few years. That's some of the ways that it's actually in the practice of law today. Lots of providers.
And so we have just a few screenshots here, just real quickly, not to read through everything. But here's one for an example of a digital attorney that they've welcomed so much they've actually given it a name.
Well, if you flip through the next 3 slides, you'll just see examples of how law firms whose names you probably know are not just using AI, but they're promoting it. They're getting out there in the world and saying, hey, we get this. We will help you, our client, move into this new world, help you manage your risks, work with us, and you won't get left behind. So I think it's important for law firms to not just embrace and use AI, but promote it. Put it out there on your Facebook page. I hope you all have one. On your LinkedIn page, blog about it. This morning I gave examples on my blog about Reed Smith, Cooley, and Proskauer. I'm flipping through my blog now to yesterday. Wish I could go to tomorrow. And yesterday I mentioned Brian Cave, Womble, Taylor Wessing, and another using AI and promoting their use of it. So it's out there, it's being used, and law firms are using their use of it as a marketing tool, which is a great idea.
And whether or not those law firms want to promote it, there's a whole other section of companies out there that certainly do, and that's ALSPs, a new acronym for everybody.
Yeah, and there are hundreds of them now. This is just a few that came to mind when I was preparing a speech a few months ago. Some of them have lawyers. Some of them act more like law firms than others do. Some just do one very technical thing very, very well. But these are all competing for your billable hours. And the days of how much can we pad this bill, how many hours can we bill, are really very short-lived at this point. Clients want to know, what's it going to take to get this done, this dispute, this deal, this portfolio managed, whatever. And some combination of law firms, ALSPs, their in-house departments are going to get it done. And you've got to be thinking about the total net time, cost, quality if you're going to compete for that work.
And so the takeaway here is really that there just are some things sometimes in the highly cognitive space, where we took some comfort before that machines and AI are just going to do better than humans, and we're not going to beat that machine. But there are things that we can do as people and as teams to make sure that we have the dominant role, and AI is a partner of ours, a member of our team, you could even say. Instead of asking our attorneys to go it alone and figure it out on their own and how to keep up at a speed that's almost impossible. So we'll talk about what is that role, how do we stay in control, and how do we use AI to actually serve our clients? Because when we talk about the rapid adoption or advent of AI, it's getting exponential at this point, something called the singularity, right, Mark?
I wanted to spend a lot of time on this, but I see that we're almost out, so I'm just going to make brief mention of this slide. There's so much information here. It's so important. The singularity, most people in this context are talking about, is the time when computers are smarter than people. Going way, way back to the Turing machine, when you can put a computer behind a screen and have that and a human answer, and you can't tell which is which. The singularity is coming. If you look on the right side, you'll see some of the milestones. This is about processing speed, which is one of those things that I said have enabled AI, the availability of big data and the more sophisticated algorithms and processing speed. The astounding thing about this graph, if you look at the curve, it's an exponential curve. That means it's growing faster and faster. If you look at the y-axis, it's an exponential axis. This increase in processing speed and development of AI is increasing exponentially at an exponential rate. Oh my God. And we can talk later if anybody wants to give me a call or shoot me an email about some of the details on here, but it's just amazing how fast it's moving.
Yeah, I think sometimes because we're in the middle of it, we don't realize how fast it's changing. And our real future is going to be this coming together of artificial intelligence and human teams. How do we not only work with AI and make it something that allows us to give better service, but we do have to also admit that AI has an advantage over people in certain ways. It doesn't argue about compensation. It doesn't worry about hoarding information. It doesn't hoard work. It shares. It hands the task off to the next best person to do it. So when we look forward for what is our role with it, we are moving away from being the dominant cognitive, maybe because of processing speed, but culture is going to become very, very important. Those firms that can really have those things, those interpersonal and interdependent relationships between our clients, between our partners inside, our referral networks, and also each other inside these firms. Because if we can't figure out how to cross-sell, I guarantee you AI is figuring it out right now. Great book by Jeff Colvin on this topic.
It's really good at that. It's really good at figuring out what to sell to what clients at what times. All those random acts of lunch need not be part of your future anymore. It will be go talk to this client or prospect about this at this time, because all the calculations will have been done to tee up the best prospects for the given service at the given time for you.
And while our lawyers really take great comfort in our business professionals on their cognitive skills and figuring out problems, really what we're seeing is these social skills will be the new economy. Not the strongest or smartest, but those who can collaborate and do it quickly and make sure that the next person on your team, whether that is a machine or a person, is running at full speed when they take that baton out of your hands. Great comment, and something. Greg Sattel has a great issue on this about how best performers will be eclipsed by best teams in the future.
I put a quote on my blog this morning from Computer World that I think is very relevant to what you just said, Daryl. The emphasis will be on acquiring new skills that catalyze thinking, problem solving, and delivering in smarter, more creative and productive ways. Being more digital will invariably be about being more human. When this stuff is fully engaged, AI will be doing all of the drudgery, all of the computational stuff, and you'll be working on relationships and team problem solving with each other. The background stuff will all be dealt with.
And the last piece of that, a great quote that I use all the time, and everybody's heard it: the whole can be greater than the sum of its parts, and that's by Aristotle. And it's very much saying that, look, if we take the people that are the best at what they do and the tools that are the best at what they do and put these things together, then we can all get better at our individual aspects of our performance and let the other component or the other person do what they do best. And that's the concept of a human artificial intelligence team. We need to get those team dynamics right. We need to have the right culture, and we need to get on board with how we can use this to benefit our clients. So let's get some takeaways as we wrap up.
It's here and it's in legal. There are hundreds of companies now working in the legal industry doing pieces of what law firm lawyers have historically done. It's here, it's in legal, it's moving fast.
And one of the reasons clients really like it is because it eliminates a lot of that friction and inefficiency and waste that comes from people saying, this is the way I like to do it, or this is the way I've always done it. We're going to have to train, coach, and lead people with improved, effective teams if we're going to stay relevant and use AI as a tool to help.
Daryl and I both said it again and again. Legal services will be provided more accurately, better, more success, drastically faster, and cheaper. I think the billable hour is an inherent conflict of interest between the client and the law firm, and this is helping move past that and back to a win-win situation, better, faster, cheaper.
In teams in general, the whole concept of it is how do we get individuals doing what they do best? AI is not only a member of this team, but it will be an enabler to help people do it best if they don't resist it.
Used to be that the biggest law firms, or the big four now accounting firms, could bully their way through things. They are the only ones that had the horsepower to handle that huge international transaction or that big multi-district litigation. AI is enabling small players to act very big and to be more nimble than those biggest AmLaw top 10 firms have been. The fast will eat the slow, not the big eating the small. Now's the time to figure out how to develop products around this, make them profitable, and scale them up. And you don't have to be a Goliath to do that.
And then finally, competitive advantage is tomorrow's price of admission. We need to stop worrying about these childish things like how big is my office and the comp system and why it's not fair or how the industry's changed, and get on board with the things that are going to maximize performance for individuals, firms, and clients. And artificial intelligence is the way we're going to get there in the future. I do want to thank all of you for being here, but first of all, I want to thank Dr. Mark Green. And Dr. Green and I have spent a lot of time together, both personally and professionally. He's one of the smartest, most genuine, and strategic people I know. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's been my pleasure. I'm sorry for talking so fast, folks, but I love this stuff.
Well, there'll be plenty of time to do that because, you know what? We got a lot of work to do with this kind of stuff. So please, there is information in here of how to contact both of us. I set it up in the handouts. You can download these slides. There's also some information that you'll see in there about other offers. But of course, go to Mark's website at www.marketintelligencellc.com or my own at hyperteams.com. And we look forward to talking to you again very soon. And until then, I wish all of you good hunting.
Thank you.